All right, so today we have the medium's book. We last month started the topic of mediums, per se, right? And today we're going to continue at item 164, sensitive and impressionable mediums. But just to recap what we spoke last year, such a long time ago, right? When we started mediums, or when we start the chapter mediums, there's a few important things that are important for us to cover. I'm sorry, my throat. To start with, we have to ask what are mediums, right? We're going to talk about something that we shouldn't know what we're talking about. And Kardec states that every individual who senses the influence of spirits to any degree of intensity is a medium. This faculty is inherent to humankind. So who is a medium? Every human being. All of us have the ability to sense the influence of spirits to some degree of intensity. We all have a guardian angel or spiritual guide, right? Would be a total waste to have this individual, this place by our side to help us, to guide us, to lead us towards goodness, if we could not sense its influence upon us, right? The fact that we have a protecting guardian spirit give us the certainty that we can interact, receive the influence, the impressions of this spirit. Now, we also understand that when we use the word mediums, we are usually referring to a subgroup of humans, a subgroup of mediums who have the word we use is ostensive mediumship. The level of sensitivity, the probability or capability of interacting with the spirit dimension is much greater than the average medium, the average human being. So while we all may, and we're going to read this here very soon, sense, perceive the presence, perceive the thoughts of spirits around us, we are generally not considered mediums, although we are, because we kind of save this word for the ones who have an ability to interact at a much higher intensity with the spiritual world. And you're going to see over here different types of mediums with different capabilities who interact with the spirit dimension in different ways. Kardec also covered before last month, you covered different types of mediums. And I'm just going to read what Kardec puts over here. The main varieties are physical effect mediums, sensitive and impressionable mediums, hearing, speaking, seeing, sonambulistic, healing, pneumatographic, writing, and psychographical mediums. We're going to cover some of this today, but those are all different types of mediumship. Kardec went over physical mediums. We went over physical mediums, I'm sorry, last month. And Kardec divided the type of physical effect mediums, i.e. the mediums that have the probability of providing great amount of ectoplasm. So spirits can utilize that ectoplasm and produce physical effect. It's called physical effect because it impresses our physical senses. So when the phenomena happens, everyone in that room, that environment, will see it happen, we will hear it happening, because we're going to see and hear or even smell with our physical organs, with our physical ears, our physical eyes, our physical olfactory senses. Okay, even palpable also. Sometimes the physical phenomena can actually be palpated. Okay. And Kardec divides the physical mediums into two types, the facultative and the involuntary or natural mediums, which basically means that the facultative mediums, they are aware of their abilities. They know that they have that potential, that when it happens, they know exactly what's happening. And therefore, they are able to have some control of it. Therefore, they're even able to invoke. And by invocation means to invite, to call upon mediums to perform a phenomena or not. And the involuntary or natural mediums is not fully aware of what's happening. They may have an idea that something is not normal and in the sense with the general, in comparison to the general population, but they don't know what's really is going on. And therefore, if you don't know, you have no control of it. Things happen or may not happen despite their intentions or lack of it. Kardec quotes, when that was the last thing we covered last month, the electrical persons. And basically Kardec added that there just to make a point that these are not mediums. So in the study of mediumship, we put electrical persons, say, but I'm placing this here to let you guys that these are not really mediums. Okay, and again, when I say word mediums here now, I'm going to refer to more ostensive mediums. So I don't need to be repeating ostensive mediums all the time, right? Even though I forget myself that we all are all mediums. These so-called electric persons are basically individuals that have accumulated a great amount of magnetic energy, that's the word that is used, and they are able to produce phenomena on their own without the participation of a medium, of a spirit, of a spirit. It's mesmerism. And Kardec was a student of these magnetic energies. He was a student of mesmerism. He worked with Mesmer. So he is able to make the differentiation of what is a mediumistic phenomenon and what is a magnetic phenomenon. One can argue, and I do argue, that even in cases of the mesmerism, of the magnetic phenomena, there will be, if not always, almost always, some degree of participation of spirits. Okay? But that does not make that effect a mediumistic phenomenon. Okay? Is there any question, anything that was from the last month that was not fully understood? So, so today we're starting today is it's I would say it's mostly reading because the things are very self-explanatory. It's hard to expand. Kardec's quite detailed on the description of the different types of mediums. And I'll ask anyone who have any question regarding this, please ask. And we have Rogério here. How are you, Rogério?
Well, thank you.
Okay. And all the mediums that participating, if they have any input with their own experience that they can share with us to help in the studies if they can. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we start 1 to 164, sensitive or impressionable mediums.
Okay. 164. This label is used to designate individuals capable of sensing the presence of spirits through a vague impression, a sort of general shara of which they do not know the cause. This variety does not display any well-defined characteristics, however. Mediums are necessarily impressionable, and thus impressionability is a quality that may be regarded as more general than special. It is a rudimentary faculty that is indispensable to the development of all the others. It differs from purely physical and nervous impressionability, with which it should not be confused, for there are persons who are not neurologically sensitive, but who sense the presence of spirits to varying degrees, while others who are very susceptible cannot perceive them at all. This faculty develops with habit and can attain such subtlety that through the sensation received, the individual possessing it can recognize not only the good or evil nature of a nearby spirit, but also its individuality, as a blind person recognizes the approach of this or that individual by a sort of sensation. In relation to spirits, this type of medium is a true sensitive. A good spirit always produces a soft, pleasant impression. An evil one, on the other hand, produces a painful, anxious, and unpleasant impression. It seems to bring an odor of impurity.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So one thing to keep in mind here that even an ostensive medium with a high degree of interaction with the spiritual world may or may not know that he or she is a medium, okay? Some individuals may possess one of these type of attributes and live the entire life not knowing of the potential that they have. Things may happen around them and they may think that it's normal, everybody has it. They may live with those attributes their entire life, questioning but not seeking answers. They may attribute those things to something else, even psychiatric diseases. And unfortunately, some may even be treated for something that's purely normal and does not require any pharmacology. Unfortunately, that happens for lack of education still these days. And Kardec starts the types of mediums over here with sensitive and impressionable mediums. And you can see here that it's kind of a prerequisite for mediumship, right? It's a common denominator for all mediums to have this ability, as Kardec puts it here, individuals capable of seeing or sensing the presence of spirits through a vague impression, a sort of general shudder of which they do not know the cause. They do not know the cause for lack of education, or they do know the cause. And someone who is involved in this kind of studies that we're doing over here, someone who is maybe involved in all the kind of spiritualist studies may know the cause, may understand the cause. But unfortunately, there's a great, as I said, a great population of mediums, even more ostensive mediums, that will live with this potential, with this attribute being wasted, not putting it to use for lack of education. This ability, the sensitive impressionable medium, is the type that is more common for all of us. Because again, I mean, we have to have this ability to interact with the spiritual world to receive any kind of influence from the spiritual world. And from time to time, we sense in different ways the presence of the spirits among us. To be considered a more medium per se, the more extensive medium, this ability is a little bit above average. It's a little bit more than what someone like myself possesses, okay? And go into a realm that's a little bit above that. Can use the example of João here, I don't think you'd mind. Mediumship means that he had now been able to have a much greater perception of the surrounds of the spirit to whom he is spoken with, sensing the presence of loved ones of those spirits that he is speaking with in a higher level than the majority of mediums like myself. I cannot do what John is doing right now, and it starts it later, after many years of doing participating in mediumship. He started doing that. So the ability was there, the potential was there, the organic faculty was there. But now his ability to be more sensitive, more impressionable to the environment, puts him in a category over here of a sensitive or impressionable medium. Will this escalate to something more than that? It could, because this is a prerequisite. This is a kind of a baseline for the other things to flourish from that standpoint. Of course, requires education, right? And when properly educated, the sensitive will even be able to be quite specific and detailed with the presence of the spirit present at that moment. He or she will be able to have a very clear distinction of being a more evolved spirit, or a spring of light, a spirit that brings us something of goodness, and being able to also differentiate the ones that are not so good, that doesn't bring a good vibe, so to say. May even be able to have an impression of what we can consider gender in the physical world, right? What spirits will identify himself as being male, or spirit will identify herself as being female. With some education, the sensitive will be able to upgrade the ability of having these differentiations and specifications of the spirit with whom he's feeling that presence around. Being that a baseline and things develop from that standpoint, we consider the person may be able to develop from that standpoint all the ones that is going to speak about now: the hearing, the speaking, the somnambulist, but always starts from that common denominator. Okay, I think we'll develop from there. Any comments, any questions here? So just want to make sure that although we are all mediums, we all have the ability of sense the presence of spirit from time to time, being feel impressionable by the presence of a spirit from time to time, does not make us a medium. There is a very minimal degree of differentiation of most of us and the one of us who has one grade up, one step up, that sense things with greater intensity and frequency. And frequency is also important, as we're going to read. From time to time, all of us may experience something like clearly seeing the presence of a loved one who is already in the spiritual world, or hearing very clearly and even be able to identify the voice of a loved one that you know very well that is spirit. It may happen once, twice, 3 times in a lifetime. That does not make us a medium. Things may happen from time to time. So frequency is also very important here to distinguish an occasional event from a ostensive medium. Okay?
We have to, if we are going to be literal, right? Medium is an intermediary between the spiritual world and the physical world. You are a medium if you are bringing a message from the spiritual world. If you are interpreting something that you are receiving from the spiritual world. When you some types of interaction in the spiritual world does not qualify as a medium, right? That's also important.
Okay?
Okay. Hearing mediums, 165. These mediums can hear the voice of spirits. As we have stated when discussing pneumatography, it is sometimes an internal voice that is heard deep down, while at other times it is an external voice as clear and distinct as if it by a living person. Hearing mediums can thus converse with spirits, and when they acquire the ability to communicate with certain ones, they immediately recognize them by the tone of their voice. Persons who do not possess this faculty can also communicate with a spirit through a hearing medium, who then acts as an interpreter. This faculty is very pleasing when such mediums hear only good spirits or those whom they call. But the same is not true when evil spirits hound them, making them hear every minute the most disagreeable and often most inappropriate things. In such cases, it is necessary to get rid of them through the method we shall indicate in the chapter on obsession.
Okay. So hearing medium. In the physical phenomenon, when a medium or physical phenomenon provides a phenomenon, everyone will hear the voice of the spirit who wants to speak, or the music that the spirits are bringing. For us, we don't need to be ostensive medium to hear that. Everyone will hear it because it's a physical phenomenon. Here we're talking about hearing mediums in a room with 15, 16 people. If there is one or two hearing mediums and there is a spirit saying something, those two will hear. The other 15, 20 people will not. Because the speaking or the seeing medium, the hearing medium is not hearing with our physical ears. Is not receive sound to sound waves. He or she is hearing with the perispiritual senses. We know that the perispirit does not require any specific sensorial organ for the senses, but the senses is distributed throughout the perispirit. How does it work? I don't know. But we know that the spirit with its perispirit, of course, can have all the senses that the physical organ has, much more augmented. So the ability to hear is better, of smelling is better, everything is augmented. And not necessarily requiring a specific organ sensory organ. How it happens, really don't know. Okay, but the hearing medium is the one who hears with the perispirit, and of course it needs to be able to translate what he or she is hearing to the physical brain in order to make sense of it. What I mean is, if I hear something, and if I'm a hearing medium, and I hear something, I may know as an eternal spirit what is being said from the spirit. But in order for me to pass it along, if I'm going to act as a medium and to differentiate what João is saying, then to become an intermediary, and I have to tell everybody in the room I'm one of the two, and then the room of 20 people who can hear, and I want to let everybody know what I heard. I'm going to have to translate what my perispirit got in sounds. So I have to pass that message to the brain, have interpretation, so to say, of what I heard, so I can speak out and say, oh, that's what the spirits are saying. Okay? That is a true medium, because it's not using the physical organs, and also it's being a mediator. It's passing messages from one side to another. It's working as a bridge between the two dimensions of our existence. Okay. So as Ron said, the medium that hears and does not serve as an intermediary is not a medium. No, it's not acting as a medium. It's not functioning as a medium. He has the ability of receiving those sounds with the perispirit sense, almost the same way that our physical ears can hear things, but means nothing to us. We do not exchange any kind of interaction between, I don't know, you walk in, I don't know, you say you walk on Fifth Avenue and there's a lot of people talking, and the ears picked up sound, but you not even interpret the sounds because you don't care. It's just a bunch of words that you hear back and forth. In that sense, that sensitive is not really acting as a medium, and I consider them a medium. At the moment that individual uses that attribute to serve as a bridge, as an intermediary, then it's a medium. Okay? And because it's acting as a medium. So the possibility of any person who hears the spiritual word to be a medium requires this faculty to be able to have this, to receive the interaction from the spiritual world, to hear the spiritual word, and then to translate it in a way that it serves the physical world. So again, the perispirits receive it, it passes to the physical brain do whatever the brain does, interprets it, analyzes it, passes through the speech part of the brain, and we are able now to speak what we heard, passing it along to the others. Then we are being an intermediary, being a medium. Is that clear, the differentiation here for what João is saying? Because that's important. And is it good? Is it bad? Well, if it's provided to us, it's good. If you educate it, it's good. Doesn't mean that if you educate yourself, only gonna hear the good things. Not necessarily. You're gonna hear what's being presented to you. So depends how you vibrate or the kind of work you provide. You may hear spirits saying good things and saying bad things. And if you are more sensitive, You may even feel the bad things and feel the good things as well. Questions, comment?
Carmel, can I add something here?
Yes, please.
It's just a very interesting fact that when I don't consider myself a hearing medium per se, right? Although when I'm in the mediums meeting, I may hear the spirits ear, let's put it that way. But when I first sort of started dealing with my mediumship, that became ostensive, right? At flourishing. I think part of it started through a very complicated obsession, which I arguably could even be a subjugation, really hard process that I went through. But during that process, in the most of the time, I heard spirits in certain circumstances, and clearly, it was just really suffering and really like very clear words and sentences and shoutings, very clearly suffering, and because I was vibrating a very difficult and low zone, I would say. So inevitably, I was capturing everything that was not necessarily the most edifying and positive, because that's where I was. But at that period of my life, and maybe there was a sort of like an allowance that I received just to pay attention to my mediumship, that I needed to really take care of and start devoting my time to educating. Because at the time I heard everything, and 99% of the time were everything very negative and really obscene things. And it was like almost a 24/7 kind of situation. So it's an interesting fact for me because I don't consider myself a hearing medium. I like speaking medium. I can psychograph, but that's not something I sort of consider myself because I don't deal with it on a daily basis. But for that period of time, and I think that was just very purposeful, right? To really call my attention to, because there was a perhaps now I need to really educate what I have. And I went through that phase, and I was for a period of maybe a year just hearing everything all the time. So it's an interesting fact that sort of happened to me that I thought was maybe it was good to relate here.
Very good. I really appreciate you helping us with this because having examples make it much clearer for us. Let me ask something. Kardec says over here, it is sometimes an internal voice that is heard deep down, while at other times is an external voice, as clear and distinct as if by a living person. How was the experience for you? Which type or was both?
For
Sometimes can be
that
both as
period
well.
of time was a very clear external voice, and I'll tell you why. Because let's just take an example. When I was in the subway, from one place to the next, and I used to hear the screaming and shouting, and for some reason, a subway car always, because of the crowd, maybe it was a very tough place for me to be at that time. I used to look around and hearing this screaming and yelling in my ears, and I looked around at the people. It's almost like I was looking, who is yelling at me, right? Like who is sitting
Uh-huh.
here? And I looked at people, and no one was looking at me, and for the least amount of. But you're in that defensive mode. You think everybody's against you, because especially where I was. But I physically look at people, and I was like, who is screaming at me? Who's saying these horrible things and calling me names? And my eyes didn't confirm anything because nobody was looking at me, but my ear was like blowing off. So it was very physical at that point. So today, if I'm in a leadership meeting and I'm hearing things, it's more like this physical, like non-physical, because my mind is hearing it. So it's a very different feeling these days.
Okay. So this is a very good example of how mediumship may give us the clues, may start us in the process of educating ourselves. Well, what Rogério is providing to us is a very good example of it happens, and we from time to time actually speak with people in our fraternal assistance who comes for help because of a process like he just started. And one Roger just mentioned to us. And once the individual educates themselves, know what's going on, two things may happen. They gain control of the situation, they educate themselves to have control of it, or in certain cases even stops. Oh, I'm not hearing the same things anymore, as if a process of education helps to both the incarnate and discarnate perhaps was also educated and stop bothering that incarnate one. But very often, one of the things that leads people to seek spiritual assistance and spiritual education is the hearing. The hearing is very, very common. Warning, as Ajay said, of the potential that they have, or the attribute that they have. And one can imagine when we hear Rogério saying, here, he seek education. The same thing is happening right now, I can guarantee you, to hundreds and of thousands of people who will deal with the situation that Rogério dealt with without having the opportunity to understand, to educate themselves, and not having the attitude that he had to seek to understand, to seek to educate what they have.
Oceani just posted a comment exactly talking about that. If you want me to read.
Go ahead, Ron.
Many of my patients have reported the same experience, yet it has often been, unfortunately, misdiagnosed as paranoia. I wish this knowledge was more widespread. Being in the medical field, it can be especially difficult to navigate this situation.
It's amazing. Amazing, thank you. We can only imagine, right? With tremendous amount of empathy and ability to try to help individuals who suffer for this. Because again, I mean, a medium may be an ostensive medium and spend entire life not knowing it, of misdiagnose him or herself, or even being diagnosticated by others of something is wrong with your mind, some know you are just hysterical, or you this or that. An individual suffer entire life with this great potential of using this for good for him or herself and for others, not being able to understand what's going on. It's really maybe an epidemic problem in the world today, that the possibility of education, of finding this kind of studies that we're doing right now, would help so many people, would assist so many people. And we have those examples from time to time in our fraternal assistants. The very young man comes to us, with problem of schizophrenia. Perhaps he does have this schizophrenia. And another thing, they can coexist. A medium may have schizophrenia as well, right? But we know for a fact that after a series of treatment and understand, that individual who was not really being able to function well in society is now fully functional, is doing great. Still may carry the diagnosis and the label of schizophrenia, may be true schizophrenia, but now is completely a good member of society, contributing for society, working, progressing, studying, doing quite well for himself after got a little understanding of what we are trying to understand right now.
And one thing also it's important, for the more ostensive mediums, right? For those that perceive the presence of spirits and hear and see that sometimes are diagnosed as this kind of psychological issues. If they learn, study, they will, most of the cases, they will learn how to control, how to educate their mediumship. It's not going to disappear. That's all something very important, because people come to the center many times. How do I get rid of it? You don't get rid of it, right? You educate yourself and learn how to control it. So we have an example that someone that works with us, right? That she was talking the other day with all the knowledge that I have acquired through the years. The difference is that I don't the phenomena is still happening, but I don't give too much importance to it, or I know how to it's not ignore, but to deal with it in a positive way, that so it doesn't disturb me so much. It always, when you are an ostensive medium, that you have an interaction with the spiritual world more frequent, it's never 100% pleasure, right? Pleasing. But if you are able to control, if you're able to understand, it improves your quality of life, as I was talking about this individual also that was helped at our spiritism.
Yeah, that's very important. Don't forget, we have to remind ourselves there is an organic component. You were born with that organic component that allowed that great interaction, that open window to the spiritual dimension, so to say, that it's not going to close because you don't like it. Have the organic component of diabetes, you're going to be diabetic. I don't think you're going to enjoy being diabetic. You have to learn to live with it. You have to use what is available for you to keep the diabetes under control, and do all the right things, and you live a normal life as a diabetic. You have the organic component to develop hypertension. If you're doing all the right things, we still have a tendency to have your blood pressure a little bit higher. You do what's available in terms of pharmacology or anything else to keep it under control, and you live your normal life with it. In mediumship, the difference here, now please, mediumship is not a pathology, okay? It's a completely normal disposition, okay? But there is that organic component that we have. That more ostensive medium has that greater sensitivity to the spirit dimension than others. It's there. You educate, you live a normal life with it. You do not educate, you lose control of it. Chances are you're going to be in trouble. The same way that you lose control of your diabetes, chances are you're going to be in serious problem with it. But everything can be controlled, and more than being controlled, it can be used and it is the goal of it itself. The purpose of having a mediumship is for you to educate yourself, to develop yourself, and in the process, it can help also assist others, also do the work of assistance to incarnate and discarnate with this faculty.
The spiritist field, Dr. Alexander Moreira Almeida has been doing a very good work in studying more deeply scientific aspects of these so-called mental disturbances, and have been publishing articles in respected magazines about it. So at least the work is being done, of course, not well spread, but it's being done.
Yeah, if people just start to pay attention a little bit more beyond what's happening around us in the physical world, I think everybody, the whole community would prosper a lot faster. There's a lot of good work being done, but very few people paying attention to it.
If I can add one more thing here, just thinking because of Alcione's comment, and I was right there, right? I think at the end of that journey for me, almost 2 years of this sort of internal battle, when my brother and a neighbor that was very close to me told me, we have to put you in a psychiatric facility, right? You're a danger to yourself. You're walking against traffic. You keep talking about these voices. And somehow in that crazy period, I had this moment of like, no, this is a spiritual issue. This is not a physical issue, right? In my mind, I think somehow the spirit guide got through it and sort of delivered the message. And I started realizing the signs, even in the worst moment. But I'm an example of somebody that could have gone into the psychiatric ward and never come out, right? Because the voices will get worse and more medicines and more the natural tendency of like hearing them even more louder. And so, yeah, I was very much on the brink of like being sort of, you know, committed to an institution as I, again, I came from a me family of mediums, and even know having that knowledge was difficult because the line gets very blurry when it becomes very physical, right? You're hearing things. So it's 100%. I'm a big proponent of like understanding people that are committed to those institutions. Again, there's cases where it may be purely medical, but I know firsthand that many there are just mediums that have not educated themselves or have not had the opportunity to even learn about it. So it becomes that, you know, that's the only avenue. And obviously, if you're an ostensive medium that spawned through that situation, you have obsessors, you have spirits around you that you just, because you're open vessel, you just capture their thoughts. So that's unstoppable almost, right? It gets to a point it's unavoidable. That's where you're gonna go. So yeah, living proof that that happens. It could happen very quickly. And to this day, you know, knowing all I know, if I'm not in constantly watch myself to be in a state of mind, regardless of the environment, what's happening, that channel or any channel for like very dangerous outcome can open up again, right? So it's just you need to learn to not only educate yourself, but control your emotions. And you know, we all go through difficult times in life, but how you handle those, it's going to determine how basically the mediumship can sort of uh, position itself. So I'm very much part of that. Almost, I was on the brink of being committed to an institution at that point. So,
Wow. And that's a very good point here is that if you have the channels open to hear the good, you also have the channels open to hear the bad, and vice versa, of course. It depends where you are vibrating. And in a moment that you give the opportunity of to hearing the good will speak louder. And that's the moment that you have to make good use of it and make the right decisions and seek education, seek help, and save yourself from a misdiagnosis. And I'm sure it's happening to other people. Another big problem is unfortunately the prejudice, the taboo that mediums suffer, right? I mean, to not talk to the dead is statement from Moses that still reverberated very strongly amongst a lot of people. And mediumship is work of the devil for some evangelicals out there. So all this taboo, all this prejudice, all those absolute erroneous and dangerous statement create those situations in the individual where you never seek help because oh they're gonna say that I am crazy, they're gonna say that I'm with the devil, they're gonna do those kind of exorcisms to get rid of the evil that is living inside of me. All those ignorance that permeates society complicates a lot of the situation. Maybe the individual actually would seek help, but all these prejudices, all this misinformation, all these taboos keeps them from seeking help for seeking education. All right? You're speaking medium?
Yes. Speaking mediums, 166. Hearing mediums who only transmit what they hear are not actually speaking mediums, who most of the time do not hear anything at all. With such mediums, spirits act upon their vocal organs, just as they act upon the hands of writing mediums. In order to communicate, a spirit utilizes the most flexible organ it can find in a particular medium. From one, it borrows the hand, from another, the vocal cords, or from a third, the ears. In general, speaking mediums express themselves without any awareness of what they are saying, and they nearly always address subjects completely foreign to their customary ideas, outside their spheres of knowledge and even beyond the reach of their intelligence. Although they are perfectly awake and normal during the process, they rarely remember what they have said. In other words, the medium's voice is an instrument that the spirit uses and through whom another person can converse with it, as is the case with a hearing medium. Nevertheless, the speaking medium's passivity is not always so complete. There are those who have an intuition about what they are saying at the time. They utter the words. We shall focus on this variety when we address intuitive mediums.
Okay. This is very important here now. We just completed hearing mediums. And Kardec started the topic saying, as we stated when discussing psychophony. And psychophony, you understood then that there's ability in physical phenomenon of spirits producing sounds out of nowhere. So pneumos air, phonic sound. So sounds coming in the air from nowhere, right? And that will be perceived by everyone. If the psychophony is not a physical phenomenon, it's a mediumistic phenomenon, then we have the hearing mediums. Okay? They will hear with the spiritual senses, voices, songs, noises, whatever. Okay? Now we have, as we have say in our mediumship meetings, mediums, they will speak the thoughts of discarnate spirits. This we call psychophony. And psychophony is what Kardec's calling here the speaking mediums. There is a very good differentiation that I hear what somebody is saying, a spirit saying, and then I repeat what they said. I heard with my spiritual senses because I'm a hearing medium, and then I used my talent to be a medium, so I speak out loud what I heard. I'm a hearing medium. Okay. It's very important to make the differentiation of the speaking medium Kardec from here, the medium of psychophony, from the hearing mediums. And Kardec starts by saying that hearing mediums who only transmit what they hear are not actually speaking mediums, who most of the time do not hear anything at all. With such mediums, the spirit act upon the vocal cords just as they can act upon the hands of the writing mediums. We are talking about psychophony here now, speaking mediums. Okay? The Kardec says, in order to communicate, the spiritualize the most flexible organ you can find in a particular medium. Different mediums will have different attributes. You have that organic component that we mentioned that leads them to be accessible to spirits to utilize the vocal cords. They're the ones to utilize their hands. Naturally, you're going to in-depth study a little bit more. In the case of the seeing mediums, or the speaking mediums, the spirit will utilize the vocal apparatus of the medium and have the mediums to speak out loud their thoughts. This can happen in a more conscious, in a more unconscious, and something between in a subconscious way. The spirit, the medium may be fully aware of what it's receiving. It receives the thought by the approximation of the two perispirits. The way it happens is this: the medium will be in a mediumistic trance, which allows them to expand the perispirit. And by expand the perispirit, it means to loosely disconnect a little bit from the physical body, a little bit, okay? Which allows the perispirit to contact with an of the spirit, and then there is an exchange of energy, a thought, in which the spirit can pass its thought, what it wants to be said, to the medium. If the medium is fully unconscious, meaning that they are not really aware of what is the words what is receiving, those thoughts will somehow integrate with the vocal apparatus, and the medium will speak those thoughts, verbalize those thoughts. Because words is just the way that we dress our thoughts, right? Right now, you are hearing my thoughts, and the way that you can hear my thoughts because I dress them with words, with sounds, right? That is an unconscious medium. Sometimes it's not so unconscious. Sometimes the medium receives those thoughts and it goes to the cognitive part of the gray matter. The medium receives those thoughts, interpret, knows what he's saying, and then say it. Okay? More conscious medium. And there is so those a little bit in between, which Kardec says over here. The speaking medium's passivity is not always complete. There are those who have an intuition about what they are saying. At that time, they utter the words. We shall focus on the variety when we address intuitive mediums. So with the intuitive medium, it will be a more unconscious medium. Just going ahead over here, just to explain what Kardec says over here, that although they are perfectly awake and in normal state during the process, but they are in a mediumistic trance, they rarely remember what they have said. In other words, the medium's voice is an instrument that the spirit uses and through whom another person can converse with it, as if it's in the case of a hearing medium. So in our mediumship medium, so to say, we have mediums of psychophony. They will receive the thought of the spirit and they will verbalize those thoughts. So a dialoguer can have a conversation with the spirit. The spirit will hear the dialoguer and will talk back using the medium's psychophony probability, with Kardec's calling over here seeing medium. Okay, I have to add over here that a seeing, I keep saying seeing, a speaking medium, sorry, speaking medium. Speaking medium could also be a hearing medium. A medium very often has more than one faculty, is able to order things, okay? A speaking medium may also be a seeing medium, may be able to not only receive the thoughts, verbalize those thoughts, but may see the spirit who is giving them those thoughts, or seeing the whole environment where the spirit is in that moment in the spiritual dimension, of course. Okay, it's very important to keep in mind that the medium may, and very often, have more than one attributes. Comments, questions? It is important to understand here the differentiation. In the spirits, in our spirits medium, most of the mediums, they are what Kardec speaking medium, that they use the phenomenon of psychophony. They receive the thoughts and use the vocal apparatus. Some of them may be more conscious, meaning that they receive the thoughts, they interpret and say it, and some may be more unconscious, that the thought goes straight to the vocal apparatus, and they speak, and the medium will speak those words, and only later on, when they are off the trance, they say what was they will know what was said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Laura that receives communications from mentors at the end of the meeting, she always says that she doesn't remember what she just spoke, right? So that's why we record and send to the group. She's always asking for us to send to her because she doesn't remember what she said.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember, Rogério, as you also received messages. You are aware of what you're talking and you remember, or not necessarily?
It's an interesting, it's not all the time. Like sometimes I'm very like in the zone and I have no really clear remembrance, and sometimes I do remember. Maybe it's a more fitting message from me myself to remember, but it depends. And I think the thing with being in between communications, sometimes there's a very, I'll call it state of confusion, because there's so much communication happen like in between that I don't know if that I don't remember. But when I'm focused on one specific communication, a lot of the times I remember, and sometimes I have no recollection. So it's very fluid, I would say.
Yeah.
And just as an observation, you can complement here, Rogério, that sometimes in a medium, you are also able to tell us with great details, actually, the situation of the spirit or the environment of the spirit is in greater detail. Do you actually see the spirit? Rogério?
Sorry, was the question you said as if I can see the spirit?
Yeah, because sometimes you after the communication is over, after the meeting is over, you can give us a little details of the condition of the spirit, in a
Yes.
sense, how it looked like, what we observed, the trauma that the spirit had observed, expressed in the perispirit. You actually see them as well. You just have
It's a combination of sort of an intuition, but I think it's
impression.
a nim and like a photographic memory where I do have specifics that I see if there is a wound or if there is some sort of like really discomfort. So I almost feel like a very palpable to me. It's an image, right, per se, not the spirit itself.
Mhm.
Like if there is, an accident or a bullet or something like that, usually it comes as an image very clear to me.
Uh-huh. So it's more of a impressionable kind of situation.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. And I'm just asking this to point out that the medium value have to have more than one attribute, one way of express the mediumship in different ways.
You think of Chico Xavier, he had all of them.
Or everything in the book.
Yeah.
Plus others that we're not able to understand yet.
Yes.
Okay, seeing mediums.
Seen mediums, 167. Seen mediums are those gifted with the ability to see spirits. They are those who enjoy this faculty in a normal state, who are perfectly awake, and who retain a precise memory of what they have seen. Others display it only in the somnambulistic state or one close to somnambulism. This faculty is rarely permanent, since it is almost always the result of a sudden and temporary crisis. In this category of seen mediums, we may include all individuals gifted with second sight. The ability to see spirits while dreaming is also a kind of mediumship, but does not comprise seeing mediumship per se. We have explained this phenomenon in Chapter 6, Visual Manifestations. Like those with second sight, seeing mediums believe they see through their eyes, but in reality, it is their soul who sees, which is why they can see either with their eyes closed or open. Thus, a blind person can see spirits as well as someone with normal sight. It would be interesting to perform a study on this issue to see if this faculty is more frequent among the blind. Spirits who have lived on the earth as blind individuals have told us that through their soul they had a perception of certain objects and that they were not immersed in total darkness after all.
Okay. Seeing mediums. Seeing mediums. An individual that basically can have an open window to look at the spiritual dimension. A seeing medium will be in a mediumistic trance in a state of altered consciousness. It may be extremely low trance, but it still is a mediumistic trance that allows them to open that window to the spirit dimension and see what's in there. Okay. And there are those, the Kardec puts away, there are those who enjoy this faculty in a normal state, who are perfectly awake and who retain a precise memory of what have seen. Other displays it only in a somnambulistic state or the one close to somnambulism. In order to differentiate a seeing medium or someone with second sight, this is important to make the differentiation. The second sight don't really consider mediumship. They have this, we can call an extrasensorial ability than the average individuals, but they do not go into mediumistic trance. They not act as an intermediary, but they do have that ability to see things over there. Okay. We have to create a differentiate of what is a true mediumship, what is not is a seeing medium, so to say, or a second sight, so to say. Although those things are, there's such a gray area over there that it's very hard to label someone as one or another. Would really require more depth analysis, and I don't think it's really worth it to go through all that myself. Some of the seeing mediums, they just need that minimal degree of mediumistic trance, so light, so to say, to open that window to the spiritual dimension and see the spiritual dimension. And according to another spirits would have mediums would have to be in a more deep mediumistic trance, on a more somnambulistic or less somnambulistic state. So we are going to cover somnambulism later on, and that's my most dreadful word in spiritism because it's a very difficult thing to understand, and if it is just difficult to understand, it's difficult to explain. And I'm still totally sincere. I don't know if I fully understand the somnambulistic state yet. And I'm doing that for a few years now.
We have to.
If the seeing mediums in the seeing individual interacts with that, what he or she is seeing, we can call it a medium. There is no interaction, it's just seeing for the sake of, because they have the open window of the spiritual world, we're gonna call it the second sight, just to make it easier for us to differentiate over here, okay? Although again, the things may coexist. And there is a tremendous shade of gray between the two of them, what's what. And I don't think it's really worth it to go to do all this, trying to do all that analysis. Very important to notice over here, which declares the mediumship per se, is the fact that even blinds can be a seeing medium. Someone with an inability to see with the physical organs may be able to see with the perispiritual senses. That really proves, so to say, mediumship. And there have been cases, Kardec study cases, of seeing mediums who were blind, physically blind, could not see anything with the physical organs. We're going to go a little deep in seeing mediums as we continue over here. Are there any questions now?
Many times, when someone is seeing things in the spiritual world but not interacting, we are going to call psychic abilities, right? Because it belongs to the person. The person is not an intermediary in terms of bringing messages from the spiritual world, which is the characteristic of a medium. But again, it's a gray area. Elmo Alcione has a question. Why do many young children seem able to see or sense spirits or presence? Why does this ability often fade as they grow older?
Okay, that's a very good question. Emmanuel tells us, and Kardec tells us in the Spirit's book as well, that the full integration of the spirit-perispirit complex with the physical body takes some time. That the full integration of the perispirit fully become here more in the physical world, it happens around 7 years of age. So that's why it's very common prior to that, a child have the invisible friends, hearing, conversing, playing with an invisible friend, because the spirit of that child with its perispirit is not so fully integrated, so compacted, integrated with the physical body yet, that closes all those windows to the spiritual dimension when this integration is more complete. That full integration happens around the time of puberty, and then we see how the hell break loose of puberty, right? Now the spirit is being able to express his or her true self in that physical body with greater intensity. I don't know, I never read and what the relationship of hormones with this full integration was, but has to be. Anyone who has to deal with teenagers or has to deal with teenagers understand there has to be a connection of hormonal with this full integration of the spirit to the physical body. But that's why children quite often we have a much greater interaction with the spiritual dimension than we adults have. And that's a very important question, a very important thing for us to understand and be comfortable, especially young parents, that, oh, my kid is weird. My kid just keep talking to no one and say they sing someone. Well, it's not no one. No, it's absolutely normal. In most cases, in the majority of cases, absolutely normal. And I mean, I'm not going to play the role of psychiatrist or psychologist here, but majority of the cases, it's just part of growing up, just part of the integration of the spirit-perispirit complex to that physical body. Did I answer the question?
And the advice given by spiritists, specialists, is how to deal with these children. Not to repress, right? Because it's natural. So if you repress, you create issues. But also not to give too much importance, because what happens is these children are very creative, and if you start giving too much importance and try to interact with their invisible friends, they are going to create stories. So it's to treat as something absolutely normal, not to repress and not to give too much importance. Praying always helps. Yes, as parents, we should keep praying, but we should always pray for everything. But if we can include them in our gospel at home, when we pray, it will help. But it's not something. If they are scared, if they are seeing, monsters or things like that they may have been having bad experiences, then prayer will help them. But in a general sense, it's not to give too much or too little importance, just to treat it as normal. And also, normally it disappears as they go from 7 to teenagers. For those that will continue being mediums, is not going to disappear, but they should start studying, if possible, to explain what they're feeling and seeing. And but to work as a medium is not recommended before they reach at least 18 years old, 17, 18 years.
Yeah, although totally normal, does not make a child a medium because it's having this invisible friend. Again, it's a period in which the perispirit can interact with the spiritual world much easier because they're not so fully interacted to the physical body yet. It does not mean that in rare cases, those individuals are actually mediums and that have some kind of, let's call it here, a premature expression of that mediumship. That's very, very rare. It can happen. And if it happens, then the parents need to educate themselves on how to educate the child. And when that happens, very often the spirits are able to put a hold, so to say, in that mediumship until that child grows up and is able to use it properly. But it could happen, but it's rare. Most often, the mediumship flourishes and a little older than the childhood. It could happen, very, very rare. And again, education is the only way out. And yeah, absolutely pray. Always, always pray.
You have both Divaldo and Chico telling the stories of their youth, right? Chico with 4 years old seeing his mother, and interacting with his mother. You can see that movie. And Divaldo also from a very early age, right? Seeing his grandmother that he never met, and that actually his mother lost her mother when at birth, and Divaldo describes the grandmother that appeared to talk, and then his aunt, his mother's older sister, tells that yes, that's exactly how she used to dress, and that's how she was buried. So that's very interesting. You can see in the movie about Divaldo that they made about Divaldo. So they had it from the very beginning, but as Elmo said, they are very special cases.
We have 7 minutes. You have quite a few to cover here on seeing mediums. I think I'd like to stop here.
Yeah.
And then next month, we just read 67 again and continue from there, because I think Kardec expands quite a bit in seeing mediums. And if he does, we have to understand that he put a very special consideration to seeing mediums. I don't want to rush to it.
Great.
And any more questions regarding this? Alcione, did we answer your questions? Okay.
So a couple of announcements here. There was a Spiritist event today that was going to happen today called Spiritism in the Arts in Connecticut, and it was postponed due to the weather. Okay, so we're not going to. Someone here was planning to attend. It's been postponed. The event Spiritism in the Arts that was supposed to happen today at 5 p.m. Next Sunday we're going to have our Q&A session. It's the last Sunday of the month, so we're going to have our Q&A. Bring your questions. We can continue on the questions we discussed today, or have new discussions. Anything that you want to ask. Okay. Tomorrow it's Martin Luther King Day, but we will be open. We'll be at our center. We have our regular fraternal assistants and the regular work we do on Mondays. Okay.
Okay, thank you, João.
Carol?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much, Elmo. Thank you for hosting for us today, John as well. And Sarita, thank you for reading for us today, and everyone who is here participating. Infinite.
Thank you, Rogério, for helping us with this topic.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Mediums book. Our topic today, mediums. Mediums are intermediaries and bridges between the spiritual and physical worlds. They may have multiple abilities to express their communications. A sensitive and impressionable medium may receive impressions and can feel or sense the presence of good or perhaps negative spirits. As they progress, more discernment will be added. Hearing mediums can perceive the voices of spirits. They hear internally or externally and may be able to identify a specific spirit who is communicating. Speaking mediums use their vocal cords to express the spirit's thoughts or messages. They can be either conscious or unconscious when giving a communication. Seeing mediums are gifted with the ability to see spirits or to see into the spiritual world dimension, or seeing during their dream time. Mediumship may be common in children, especially before the ages of 7. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves as we go forth now to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.